In the famous words of Dennis Green, the Bills are who we thought they were. Yo, yo, yo. What up? We are Trust the Profits. We're coming at you bringing some NFL Super Bowl futures odds tonight. Matthew at Failed to Menace. Thanks for joining, man. We're going to cover real quick. We're going to cover all 32 teams right now and just hit on them real quick, futures odds, and see who's got a shot, who doesn't, and probably make fun of a few teams along the way. Matt, what's up, man?
Not much. As you can see, I'm ready for the NFL season. If those of you who watch me on horse racing stuff, you know I like to get dressed up and have the whole little hat and cap and tie and all the 9 yards. That all gets thrown out the window come Sundays. I am a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. I'm originally from that area of the country. And so I am ready for my EAGLES Eagles to take on your Lions this Sunday. But we'll see. It's an exciting season. You know, everybody but the Rams, the season is still fresh and new, and hope springs eternal. So we'll have to see how the season goes for everybody. But excited to be talking football today.
Yeah, dude. The Lions, like you said, our two teams facing off week one. Interesting. A lot of hype behind the Eagles coming in, rightfully so. Got a young quarterback who's maybe going to take the next step here. Lions, same thing. A lot of young talent, but, the Lions haven't been good in my lifetime. So in 40 plus years of fandom here. So
it's rough.
Barry Sanders is not coming out of that tunnel.
Yeah, it's tough. So, I mean, the Eagles have been kind of throughout most of my life have been competitive, but also underachieving at times. And so it is, while I've not had to deal with, because I have several friends who are Detroit Lions fans, I've not had to deal with that sort of like depression that sets in. But I have had to deal with just monumental letdowns at times, where you just think
the Donovan McNabb era, the Randall Cunningham era.
Yeah, I mean, Cunningham era, the torn ACL on opening day against the Packers when the rest of that team was absolutely stacked in 1991 was just heartbreaking. And then even the death of Jerome Brown early, the year before, and then the McNabb era, closing the vet out with a loss to Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship game when they had never won a game in cold weather before, and it was just a lot of bad things. But one Super Bowl win wipes all that out, and so hopefully for your Lions that comes sooner rather than later.
It's never happened in the history, and in fact, since 1991 they have one playoff win. So even making the playoffs is a big deal for us. Let's jump in before this turns into a 3-hour episode here. All right, we're gonna start at the bottom here with the longest shots in the field. And I don't see anything that stands out as wrong at the very bottom. The Houston Texans, 250 to 1 odds. They were bad. Once the massage therapist left, Deshaun Watson, everybody's favorite rapist, once he left, that team went terribly downhill and became the worst team in the league, and it has been ever since, really. So what do you any thoughts on the Houston Texans? Any shot at all?
No shot at all. And I think they're a franchise headed in the right direction now that they're kind of cleaned house, but it's years away.
Atlanta Falcons next, 200 to 1. Another terrible team on the decline. Matt Ryan's gone. I couldn't name 5 players on this roster. I could, but we would know.
Yeah, their best player is Kyle Pitts, probably their tight end, who's a second-year player, certainly ascending. But honestly, you go back and you look at this, it makes Matt Ryan's effort last year look freaking heroic in some ways, that he was able to win as many games as he did with this roster, because the roster didn't change that much from year to year. And the only big change was Matt Ryan's gone, and that's a pretty significant change. So no hope on the Falcons.
Matt Ryan's like a gag job away from that Super Bowl 3 or 4 years ago from being a legitimate, like he's kind of, there's a lot of parallels with Matt Stafford and him. They were both statistically great their whole careers. And Ryan didn't get it done, lost that heartbreaker to Brady. Stafford got it done last year, finally, for the Rams when he went to a real team. But yeah, like you said, it's funny what happens to a team when they lose that guy who was kind of the only thing that was hold them together, and you don't always realize it. I knew when Stafford left the Lions that it was going to fall apart quick, but Atlanta's now amongst the worst in the league. Chicago Bears, wow, what are you going to do with them? 150 to 1. Justin Fields, I think he's talented and he's got a shot to be good, but not on this team. He's got to get out of there before he gets his head bashed in.
Yeah, I think this is a team that might be better than the third worst. I mean, if you're thinking about it, is this the third worst team in the NFL? I think they might not end up being the third worst team in the NFL. There's some upside there because of Fields, but from a Super Bowl betting standpoint, like just absolutely not. Like there's nothing there to hang your hat on. That offensive line is atrocious. So he's going to be running for his life all season.
Another team that fits into the bracket of went severely downhill after losing their franchise quarterback, Russell Wilson. Seattle amongst the worst. Who's their even quarterback now? Geno Smith? I can't even.
Yeah. Geno Smith. And, this is another one where they just kind of went into decline, right? That defense that was so vaunted for all those years just slowly started losing pieces kind of player by player. And again, Russ kind of held everything together with duct tape and chewing gum and kind of kept them respectable and put up some really great numbers last year before he hurt his hand. And now that he's with Denver, obviously we're going to talk about them a little bit later, but not a lot of hope there in Seattle. Also a tough division with the 49ers and the Rams in the NFC West.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll get back on Wilson in a little while. He's going to be a little later. Next up, the Detroit Lions, 150-1. I think this is a little low for them. I think they're getting disrespected a little bit. I don't think they're a whole lot better than this, but I would put them, like you just said about the Seahawks being in the NFC West. The Lions in the NFC North is probably the worst division in all of football. You've got Green Bay on the decline. We won't get into it too far yet, but that's the only reason I would rate the Lions a little higher is because I think they get some wins against that weak division. And Minnesota might be a little better than I'm giving them credit for too, but 150-1 so far. I don't see any teams that I'd even put $5 on at these futures odds. I mean,
no,
usually you even being a homer with the Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's going to continue. If you go up one more to Jacksonville at 130, basically 130 to 1 odds. New regime change there. I think similar to the Texans, maybe a franchise that has cleaned house from the Urban Meyer experiment and has Doug Peterson, the old coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who won a Super Bowl there. I absolutely think they're on the rise. And again, a team that might outperform where they are right now compared to some of those other teams that are around at the bottom of this list. But I do think Peterson's got him heading in the right direction. But again, a tough conference to be in with the AFC. So I wouldn't put even $5 down on a Super Bowl run there. Next year might be another story.
Yeah, I got to see the lead singer of Hanson sing Bop at QB there. Clemson product out of my backyard over here.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. He's another one. And I hope his career doesn't go to waste on bad teams like we've seen so many times with good college quarterbacks. But I think you're right. I think they're right in the ship, but just maybe a year or two away yet. But next up, the Giants. I think honestly that they might be the worst team in football.
This is
terrible.
This is a shocking line, honestly, for the Giants. I think the Giants absolutely have a shot to be picking first or second in the draft next year. Even their coaching staff admits that this is not a good team. Daniel Jones is just a train wreck at quarterback, and the franchise is not committed to him beyond this year. This was a really bad roster that the previous regime just let go to waste. Dave Gettleman, the old general manager, is now out. They bring in Brian Daboll as the new head coach. So again, like some of these other teams we've been talking about, I think headed in the right direction, and they made some nice draft picks this year, but it's going to be a long road for them. And again, you have the Eagles and the Cowboys who we'll be talking about, but that's not the easiest division to start just racking up wins in.
No, and that's another team. Ironically, the theme so far seems to be they're longing for the days of screaming that Eli Manning sucks those last couple years because they haven't done anything since, man.
Don't you know it? I mean, yeah, they would gladly take Eli Manning and his 8-8, 9-7 records over what they're going to be seeing this year in the Meadowlands.
Next up, we have the MILF Hunter, the Jets at 130-1 also. Unfortunately, the MILF Hunter is going to miss a few games, but that's another team. You're not expecting them to make the playoffs this year anyway, so missing a few games might not be the biggest deal to them. But Joey Flacco is starting game one against his old team, the Ravens, if I recall correctly. But
Yeah,
yeah, Zach Wilson. I'm interested to see Zach Wilson, see if he can take a step up this year. But we won't see him, I think, until like week 5.
yeah, and we'll see what Robert Saleh, the old defensive coordinator of the 49ers, the head coach there in New York. And again, I think they got the right guy. You do always wonder, one of the things that I'm always curious about is whether or not a defensive coaching staff, particularly a defensive head coach, puts in the resources to develop young offensive players and particularly a young quarterback. A lot of times you see young quarterbacks flourish under offensive-minded head coaches. And so having a defensive-minded head coach, does that play into Zach Wilson being a game manager rather than let's tap into what Zach Wilson does best and accentuate that? So we'll just have to see.
That's a good point. They were so bad his first year last year that I don't think there was a whole lot to even see. Just kind of like Trevor Lawrence. He's back there getting killed. Next up, Carolina Panthers, another team longing for the days of Scam Newton in his prime. But now they got the kissing quarterback, Sam Darnold, on the bench. New regime coming through. I don't know. It's a wild card. They're pretty bad. I don't think they really have any shot. But again, in the weak NFC, it's a team that I think could creep up somewhere probably close to 500. Like 6-10, 6-11, whatever it is. I don't know. I don't think they're that terrible. But again, we're doing Super Bowl futures. No chance. Probably zero chance to make the playoffs even.
Yeah, no chance at the Super Bowl futures. I do think Carolina is one of those teams that's just they can be scrappy and they can kind of just end up being, like you said, around 500. We'll see if Baker Mayfield can kind of have a little bit of a rebirth in a new setting.
He's going to like McCaffrey if he can stay healthy.
That's the X factor.
Last year 2-0, and then McCaffrey went down and they were trash. So that's pretty much the key to that team to me.
It absolutely is. And I just saw he missed practice the other day. Now, it does seem like he'll still be ready to go for Sunday, but he just is so delicate. They have some nice pieces on the back end and defense. That was kind of their calling card for a lot of years, was that really strong defensive line. Their line's not quite as good as it is, but their back end is really solid. They have some really good safeties and corners on that team, with J.C. Horn being one of them, last year's first-round draft pick. But definitely interested to see what they do, but no shot at the future in terms of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if they can keep McCaffrey healthy, they're the type of team that could come in and, like you said, be scrappy and win some games they're not supposed to, because they got some big play threats. Next up, the Steelers. This is another team that they're at 90-1, and that's another team I wouldn't even put $5 on. I haven't, so far I'd say the only team I'd put $5 on at all, actually none so far.
Yeah.
You're just burning money right now.
I think so. I think the question is, I wonder if there's other prop bets in terms of what's the Steelers' odds to make the playoffs? Because one thing you can just put faith in is Mike Tomlin. That's what you're hanging your hat on, is that Mike Tomlin doesn't lose. Exactly.
They've always been decent.
Exactly.
Ben Roethlisberger's 20-year career, they were good every year.
Right.
And they had 1 or 2 years below 500 in 18 years.
Exactly. And let's be honest, Ben Roethlisberger last year looked like he could throw the ball about 20 yards down the field, and that was it. And so, they were, I don't want to say hampered by his offense, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, he was very clearly done.
And so, we'll see. There's a few different options there at quarterback, obviously, with Mason Rudolph being one, with Mitch Trubisky now being the starter, actually being named captain. New surroundings, new, atmosphere, new setting for him, getting away from Chicago, which might be the best thing for him. So, I think that's a team that might surprise some people, but not enough for the Super Bowl wager.
Nah, Trubisky's I don't know. Can he be a game manager? I think maybe. And that's, I think, all you can hope for out of him. But like you said, when you go get drafted by the Bears or Lions or Jacksonville, one of these teams, you can't even really tell what you got, because you get back there getting killed and then your confidence is down, you're beat up. I don't know. But yeah, Pittsburgh, they're built in the trenches like a football team's supposed to be done. Good or at least moderately decent every year. Washington Commanders, 70-1. I don't know why they're this high, but maybe you got thoughts on them that's a little higher. I think they're
I don't like this team at 70-1 at all. Obviously Carson Wentz was a big part of why the Eagles won the Super Bowl, even though he got hurt leading into that out in Los Angeles against the Rams late in the season that year in 2017. But he has been a shell of his former self. The Colts basically just fleeced the Commanders in a trade to get Wentz off the books. And when you talk to the people in Indianapolis, they were thrilled to get Carson Wentz out of their locker room.
That's what I was going to say.
And
Everybody hates him everywhere he's ever been.
That's the thing. And last year should have been the year everything worked, because you're back with Frank Reich, who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in the Super Bowl run. So he was in a familiar offense with a familiar person. That was a really, really good Colts team, because we still haven't seen them on this list yet, because they're going to be a lot higher. And I don't know. Washington's also just a dysfunctional franchise. You talk about some of these franchises earlier. They're another one where, and it's no fault of this kid, but one of their fifth round draft pick, Brian Robinson, got shot already this year. And he's out for an indefinite amount of time. He was probably going to be their starting running back, or one of the top two. And it just seems like this franchise, like everything bizarre, just goes wrong with them. And it really goes up to the leadership of Dan Snyder. Just not a really good owner at all. And I also am surprised they're this high, because they're facing some injuries. And like I said, I just don't have any faith in Wentz.
Yeah, the only thing going for them again is the NFC's.
Yeah,
far inferior to the AFC this year, more than I can ever remember in the past. All right, now let's get to the massage parlor team, the Cleveland Browns, which at 50-1, absolutely not. This is the worst franchise in all of sports. That Deshaun Watson signing is the worst signing in sports history. And I'm a former fan of Deshaun Watson. Clemson is 40 miles from my house. I thought he was a world beater coming out of college. Going in, he was great for Houston for his first year or so, tore up his knee. And then he started getting into the massages and rapes off it. And they still signed him for a quarter bill. Just a stupid move. Stupid.
Yeah, I especially with the suspension that he's facing, I just don't understand this line, honestly, because yes, they're good in other spaces, but in other spots, but they also underachieve. I mean, they're the Browns, and they just consistently underachieve. And until they could prove it, until they actually go out there and start putting together consecutive seasons where they're successful, it's hard for me to really get behind them.
Yeah, before Watson turned into Bill Cosby, I thought that this team, I mean, they were built to win finally.
Yeah.
Even when it was Mayfield, it was like this, they looked promising. They are built. You're right. That's a good team around them. That's the only reason they're getting any respect on this chart. But
yeah,
to me, with that circus going on and the Browns do what the Browns do, and that's ruin everything.
Yep.
At 50-1, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. Moving on, the Patriots. This is a wild card. Number one, they're in the AFC, which is, like we've said 100 times already, by far the tougher conference. Mack Jones is about as polarizing a quarterback, because, I mean, the beginning of last year, they're like, they're not even missing a step from Brady, because if you remember how hot they came out.
Yeah.
50-1, I mean, this is a team, this is a wild card. Do I think they'll win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Could they be a complete abortion and go miss the playoffs completely? Maybe. But this might be the first team that I'd actually say, if everything went perfect, and I'm just talking on pedigree of Belichick, and that's it. And they've got some good trench players, but
they do. And this is the first team. I agree with you. This is the first team where I was like, I would put a little bit of money down. I mean, you just never know. Do you get that Belichick magic? Do you get that, perhaps Belichick cheating? They start, recording some other teams on their schedule. They start spying on things, like the way they do, all the asterisks next to their Super Bowls. There's something there. And while I think there are some other good teams in the AFC, you never know how things break. I mean, especially when you think about the AFC, and we'll get to some of these teams, but like a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, those are mobile quarterbacks, and they might open themselves up to injury and get to what happens if they get hurt, and then suddenly the AFC looks a lot more open. So I think the Pats at, 50-1, basically, I'd put $10 down on that.
Yeah, they made a run middle of the season, the first half of the season last year, where it looked like this team could do it, man. Like I don't think anybody was mistaking them for a Super Bowl winner, but they definitely looked like they could be on a playoff run, and then, potentially better than that this year. Mack Jones, though, I don't know what happened, but everybody lost all the respect for him that they had going last year. Probably because they kind of crashed at the end of last year, and we'll see what happens with them. The Saints, 40-1. our guy, famous Jameis out here, just a machine for bad. Just, I mean, you want to take a soundbite, dude. This guy's incredible. He's like the dumbest human being that's ever lived, maybe, and I say that with all due respect.
This is a line I truly do not understand. The Saints are not good. And like they have some nice pieces in their secondary for sure. I mean, obviously they just traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, one of their starting nickel corner basically to the Eagles, and really aren't going to miss a beat on the back end. But their first round draft pick is starting the year in injured reserve. He was supposed to be on the starting offensive line. So their line's, bummed up. And now it's also, you don't have Sean Payton anymore. And, we talked about, teams that are transitioning into new leadership and new coaching staffs and things like that. I just don't have any trust in Jameis Winston. I have a lot more confidence in Mack Brown than I do, or Mack Jones, I should say, than I do in Jameis Winston. So I just don't think the Saints are very good. Now, they don't play in a very good division, so maybe you just go, well, they're going to rack up a bunch of wins against bottom feeders. Okay, but these aren't odds for the playoffs. These are odds for the Super Bowl, and there's no way in hell I'm taking 40-1 the Saints into the Super Bowl.
They got to get by Tom Brady and the ball there getting facial surgeries before they even make it to the playoffs. But I like Jameis Winston as an entertainment. I mean, just on accident, pure entertainment on accident in the pressers because his IQ is like 12. But he's actually exciting to watch, dude.
He is, because he keeps both teams in the game. That's why he's excited to watch.
Nobody's going to throw a 30 season down again for years to come.
No, he'll throw 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
Now we're talking. I like the Raiders at 40. Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't think they're going to win. They're coming out of that. They might get dead last in that division because that division is ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, those 4 teams in that division are better than the NFC completely, with like 2 teams as an exception. In my opinion. But the Raiders, I mean, dude, adding Adams, best receiver in football last year, for last few years, arguably the best receiver. And dude, Derek Carr's done nothing wrong. He's progressing. He looks like, I think they were on their way to some good stuff before Gruden went racist and Henry Ruggs killed somebody drunk driving. And I don't know, dude. I'm rooting for the Raiders. I don't typically root for the Raiders, but like they need some good juju, man. They've done a lot of things right, and it seems like they've gotten unlucky.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the Raiders a lot, and I think if you put the Raiders over in the NFC, they probably would be favored to win just about every single division.
Yes.
I mean, that just in comparison. So
I'd argue that they would be the best team in the NFC. I mean, that's how.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean,
Green Bay, Tampa Bay, maybe, but I mean, come on, dude, they're good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Derek Carr a lot, and that team has been through a lot. You referenced obviously the Gruden, the Ruggs, and they've been getting rid of all their first and second round draft picks from the last couple of years because these guys were just, character problems and just not performing on the field. And, it's rare to see teams just outright release former first round draft picks, but that's what they've been doing. And so the new regime in there as well, from the front office to the coaching staff, and a fresh start. And you got to be rooting for them. I mean, I'm excited to see what they can do. And they have a tough path, but they have a lot of talent. And if it comes together, they can do it.
It's fun to watch a franchise bounce back after being shit for 30 years. I mean, finally did it with Breeze. It was like, man, or like the Red Sox after 100 years. It's like, right. I hate the Red Sox, but it was like, man, that's kind of cool to see that happen finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're still waiting on it for the Lions, but we'll get into that another year because that ain't happening this year, bro. Next up, the Fish. Miami Dolphins, 40-1. Dude, they bring in Tyreek Hill, the most electrifying player in the league, probably. I just don't. Dude, Tua, dude, I swear to God, and I'm no prime athlete, I think I can throw a football better than Tua. And I know I can throw a baseball harder than him, but I think I can throw a football better than him too. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, Tua's that's the question mark, right? Is will
a lot
Tua
of people
take
really believe in him? I've gotten murdered on Twitter over this guy because I give Tua a lot of shit and people like him.
I
And I
don't.
don't know. I have no reason to not like him. I see
Yeah.
his ball come off his hand, and it looks like Tim Tebow or something, where the ball starts flipping end over end. Like,
Yeah.
and watch. Say it in the comments. Go ahead.
But no,
He sucks.
listen. I just think he's a middle of the road quarterback. Like I think that's all he is. Now
That might be good enough for Miami.
well, that's the thing is they've assembled a
Good club.
really nice team around him, but they also have a first year head coach, and
Yeah.
we'll see. How does the coaching staff, if in a first time ever head coach, and so will the players buy into that system? Is there a learning curve with the new offense? These are questions, and they do have some nice teams, some nice players around them. That's a pretty good defense down there in Miami. Again, there's a path maybe there, but 40-1 just seems generous. I mean, them and the Saints both seem like they're off a little bit on what the actual odds are to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would take the Patriots and Raiders over both of them.
Yep.
Moving on, the Titans, 40-1. Now this is probably they're a middle of the pack team, and we're about in the middle of the pack for the league now. If the Titans, and I'm going to do it again. Ryan Tannehill is not. He's not a quarterback who's going to go to the Super Bowl ever to me. Middle of the road average. He's another Jameis Winston. Can he get it done on a great team? I don't know, maybe, but I don't think so. He seems like one of those guys that loses concentration about 3 times a game and does something really stupid. And you can't do that in the NFL.
No, you can't. And they got rid of A.J. Brown this offseason. They traded him to the Eagles, and that was kind of Tannehill's security blanket. Like when all things went south, he would just throw these like 8-yard crossing patterns to A.J. Brown or like a quick out to A.J. Brown. And Brown would make something happen with that. And, obviously they still have that devastating running attack. I really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. I think he's a good coach. That team's going to play hard, but I just think to your point with Ryan Tannehill, there is a ceiling to how good they're going to be ultimately at the end of the season. And they drafted, Treylon Burks out of Arkansas to really kind of take over that A.J. Brown spot. But, that's a lot to put on a rookie. And so I just don't think Tennessee is going to be able to replicate Brown's production, and they're probably going to take a step back offensively this year.
Yeah, 41 feels about right for them. They could do it. Like you said, Henry's still healthy. Henry is still the best in the league.
Yep.
Let's see. Arizona. That's an interesting one at 40-1. Like, I don't know. Go ahead. Talk on Arizona because I don't know what to think of them.
Yeah, they're in probably the toughest division in the NFC, certainly with the Rams and the 49ers up ahead of them. I don't believe in Kyler Murray at all. So that's the problem. I mean, this team will go as far as you think Kyler Murray, how good he is. Now, they've assembled a lot of veterans around them, and that might sound good in theory, but a lot of these veterans are also really towards the end of their career. And what happens towards veterans at the end of their career is they start getting hurt. And you started seeing that last year. And so this is a team that I just feel like is kind of a walking IR, team to some extent. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Murray. And even though they ironed out their contract, there's still a lot of bad blood there. I feel like, with the clause about making him watch so much game tape that they ended up taking out. And I just feel like there's a lot that's unsettled in Arizona, and I'm not touching that team.
I agree that Murray, I mean, like you said, that dude's talent is unquestionable. He's incredible. Yeah. He's fun to watch. Another one who's electric with the ball. I remember seeing him his very first game in the NFL. He played against the Lions, and he was exciting to watch. I hated, normally like undersized quarterbacks don't typically do well outside of Drew Brees, but he is fun to watch. He does remind me that he just doesn't get it mentally. Like he just, I don't know. I think what you said about the, forcing him to do his homework thing kind of says it all. Like he just doesn't get it. He's kind of taking the whole thing for granted. A good team, like you said, I don't know. Could they make a run? Yeah. Can they make the Super Bowl? No. I think they're about the 5th or 6th best team in the NFC. Moving along, Minnesota Vikings at 35-1. I don't get it. Kirk Cousins from Michigan State, my guy, my college, my favorite college team I root for. I like Kirk Cousins. I don't like him as an NFL quarterback at this stage in his career. I think he's average. Another guy throwing the middle of the pack and needs an absolutely dominant team around him. Delvin Cook can't stay healthy for more than 4 games. Otherwise, it's a good team. I mean,
Yeah.
In fact, I would take them to beat Green Bay in the NFC North this year because I think Green Bay is on a heavy decline. I wouldn't be surprised if they won that division, but it's a bad division. It's the worst division in football.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. I just don't have a lot of faith in Cousins either. He certainly has a lot of weapons around him. I mean, Justin Jefferson is just an absolute superstar.
Top in the
And
league, yep.
absolutely. And so there's the talent there.
And
Defense is
Thielen,
good.
Is Thielen
Yeah.
healthy? He
Yeah.
didn't do much last year compared to previous years, but those two together, forget about it.
No, and they have a nice tight end. And so they have a lot going on there in Minnesota offensively. And like you said, could they potentially beat Green Bay for the division? Maybe. And then suddenly the road to the Super Bowl gets a little bit easier because now you're playing at home. You're hosting other teams. Things might break the right way. Again, though, I compare them a little bit to the Titans with Tannehill. I just think with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, you just have a ceiling. And I just don't think that ceiling is the Super Bowl or even playing in the Super Bowl. So
yeah, I wouldn't bet them on that. Like I said, I think they got a shot to win the worst division in football for what that's worth. But I don't know. Again, though, I don't really believe in any of the NFC teams. We'll get to it here in a minute. But
yeah.
Moving along, the Colts 25-1. Matt Ryan. What a story it would be if Matt Ryan could somehow make it work with his team and get a Super Bowl. They do have the best running back in football at this point, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
They're solid on both sides of the ball, dude. I mean, 25-1. Matt Ryan has gagged in better situations than this, but I mean, he's again, I'll compare him to Stafford. He's coming down. He's in the he's playing the back 9 right now, but I still think he's capable. I've always kind of thought Ryan was good, but not great. I think he's better than average. He's better than Cousins and Tannehill and those guys, but he's got to do it right now with this team.
Absolutely. And I wonder how much Ryan, who by all accounts is a phenomenal teammate, is how much of this is a breath of fresh air in Indy after the Carson Wentz fiasco last year.
Yeah, man.
And how does that just buoy this team maybe? And because people thought, hey, with Wentz, this is a real Super Bowl team last year potentially. Because like you said,
awesome last year at times.
Yeah, it was stacked around that.
Yeah.
And it should have been so much better than they were. Now you get a competent veteran quarterback and who has a lot of ability still. I think he's still got I think another season in him. And you got to I just really love Frank Reich as a head coach. I think he's just such a good coach. And so I'd throw $10 on the Colts. I'd play around with this. I think that's a live shot in a lot of ways. I think this is a team that will rebound after all the crap that happened last year.
And as much of a prick as I am, I hate to see a guy he's a borderline Hall of Famer, Matt Ryan. I think throw him in the same blanket with Matt Stafford. I hate that he's going to go down with the legacy of the gagging away the biggest Super Bowl in history because he's had a nice 15-year career. He's always been solid.
And that Super Bowl was not all on him. That was also Kyle Shanahan. Just making some
always
baffling...
look at the quarterback and they say he blew it.
Yeah.
That's what they always do, and it's not always fair. But that's his legacy, man.
It is.
It sucks. So it'd be cool. Maybe, again, I don't think they're going to win, but yeah, maybe throw a dime on them. Moving up, here's your club, 22-1, the Eagles. Dude, I'll be honest, man. I am not even that team that much, but because they're in the NFC and I don't believe in any of them, I think you can throw a blanket over those top 5 NFC teams, and none of them are going to win the Super Bowl. But, I mean, somebody's got to go.
Exactly. Somebody's got to get there. And if you're in the game, then you got a shot. Like, you never know what's going to happen with attrition and everything else. And what I'll say about the Eagles is this. They're going to, obviously, a lot of this is quarterback dependent, but they have the absolute best offensive line in the NFL. Their second string offensive line is better than some starting units' offensive lines. I mean, they are stacked on the offensive line. Their defensive line is stacked. I mean, the fact that their number 1 draft pick, Jordan Davis, who's an absolute freak out of Georgia, is their fourth defensive tackle. Should tell you like just how loaded that team is on the defensive front. They actually got a good group of linebackers finally. Their secondary is all shored up now that they got Gardner Johnson, James Bradbury, Darius Slay on the back end.
Former Lion.
Yeah. And had a hell of a year last year, too. Made it to the Pro Bowl.
He's great. He was great his whole career here. He was great. Just went unstrung because he's on the Lions.
And you know, they have obviously Devontae Smith, their last year's number 1 pick. They have A.J. Brown now at wide receiver. They have Dallas Goedert, who I think is going to become one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends in the league this year.
He's ranked in like 5th through 8th range on most fantasy charts. So he's getting some respect. That team is like it's all on Hurts, like you said.
Yeah,
it's quarterback dependent, but you could say that about 80% of the league, I think.
But here's the thing: what they do is they run the ball extremely well, and in the playoffs, that's what you're going to have to do. And they can minimize turnovers. And cold weather games, they can just pound the ball, and they can score that way. And I think their defense now is finally in a spot where they're not just going to be a bend don't break. They're actually going to be able to attack teams and get after teams. Hassan Reddick was a big pickup in the offseason, being able to pressure the quarterback. And so I like them more than the Cowboys, obviously, because of my birthright. And so, but I think I absolutely am going to put money on the Eagles.
Cowboys are the most hated franchise in all of sports besides the Red Sox and Yankees, probably. But
exactly.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
So would you? I'm sorry, I talked over you rudely. The Eagles, you are putting money on them, or you aren't?
Yeah, I would put money on them because, like you said, it's the NFC. I think they have a shot. You give me 22-1. I'll put a little bit of money on that. Absolutely.
We're going to talk at the end of this, and each of us are going to have to throw down a $100 bet, legitimate. Right. We're going to have to pick our favorite out of this whole list. And if it's
all right,
obvious favorite's Buffalo. If it's that, whatever. But all right, the Bengals, 22-1, the battling Bengals. Joe Burrow, I think, is the truth. I believe in him. Jamar Chase is electric and awesome. The woman beater, Joe Mixon, is awesome. I love the Bengals, dude. I loved them last year. They surprised me and actually almost won it. I'm a little bit afraid of the losing Super Bowl quarterback curse that has happened, and that is a real thing. If you don't believe me, look it up. Whoever loses the Super Bowl rarely ever gets back. If they go to the Super Bowl as for the first time, they rarely ever get back. I think it was like 15 or 16 times. They showed this big long list of dudes who went there and then never went back. I don't think that's the case. The Bengals have too much young talent. I love this team. I like the way Burrow carries himself. Jamar Chase is a stud. Mixon's a stud. Where are you at on the Bengals?
Very similar to you. I love all those guys. I love the swagger that Burrow brings. You know, even though I went to the University of Florida, but I'm a big LSU fan as well. And so I just think you have to I just love Tiger Stadium at night with the Tiger's eye in the middle of the field. I just think it's an electric atmosphere. And, you know, I've always liked LSU. And so because of that, I followed Burrow and Chase in college. And those guys were studs then. And I was just like, I can't believe the Bengals got both of them. I do worry about the Super Bowl hangover, though. And
you saw it last
through. I worry about that because I saw it with the Eagles back when the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl. The next year, they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, that happens sometimes with these teams. So that's the only reason.
I pulled that list up for you because it's odd how many times that's happened.
It is
15 times out of the last 20 Super Bowls. Like whoever lost didn't get back, and then they didn't even. Maybe never were heard from again. But I know that's not going to happen with Burrow, barring injury or something. But we actually have some live footage of Burrow going into the season. All right, let's go. Beyond the Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, also 22-1. And I'm just going to keep this one quick. Dak Prescott sucks. Ezekiel Elliott sucks. The Cowboys suck. Emmitt Smith sucked 20 years ago. Troy Aikman, I hate all of them. I hate the franchise. Jerry Jones is a child rapist. I hate the franchise. Jimmy Johnson sucked. Everybody sucks. Aikman sucks in the booth. Get them all out of my face. I never want to see a Cowboy again and all their stupid fans.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So,
and I don't even have any reason for it. At least you're a fan of the rival team.
Yeah.
I have no reason. I just despise them.
Yeah, I think they're trending in the wrong direction for a variety of reasons. I mean, they just signed 40-year-old Jason Peters out of retirement to play left tackle because Tyron Smith is hurt. This is not a team that's moving in the right direction. I'll just leave it at that.
I could spend a whole hour on how bad I hate the Cowboys.
That's a separate
I
pod.
hate. Look at Jerry Jones's stupid plastic face in that taping booth. I hate that guy. All right, let's go on. My blood pressure's up. Baltimore Ravens. Here we go. 20-1. Now we're getting into the kind of upper echelon of teams, I feel like. Once we got past the Cowboys, because clearly they're not upper echelon in anything. The only thing they're upper echelon on is, massage therapies with Watson and Jerry Jones. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson. What do he get? A $10 billion? Oh wait, he hasn't signed yet. No, I was lying about it. He's holding out for the money. He's holding
out. They just announced today that they have not reached a contract agreement, and they will table all contract talks until the end of the season. So
and then franchise tag him, and then he'll be gone unless they win this year. Is my prediction on that deal. But
yeah.
In any case, he's dangerous. He's another one. I think his IQ is less than the table I'm sitting at right now, but one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. Great player. From what I hear, he's a pretty good teammate too, other than just not being very smart. But you don't always need to be a brain surgeon to be a great athlete. And the Ravens are built. They're always built right. Again, kind of like we talked about the Steelers a little while ago.
Yep.
Just a good team inside and out. Usually Lamar definitely can get it done, in the right situation. But AFC, man, it's deep, baby.
It is deep, and I think for that reason, I'm just not that sold on the Ravens. Jackson in the playoffs is very much so a mixed bag, and that's being generous, in my opinion. I think that this is maybe the same argument against the Eagles, which is that style of football can maybe rack up 11, 12 regular season wins, but may not be able to win you games in the playoffs. When you put it all on Jalen Hurts, when you put it all on Lamar Jackson, are there the pieces around him? Can he make it all happen by himself? Does he try to do too much? And
it was like Michael Vick, man, if you want to flash back 15 years.
Yeah.
Like Mike, that's who Lamar reminds me of. Just an incredible athlete, gifted, great arm, fairly accurate passer too, and unbelievably elite athlete. But yeah, man, if it's all on you, you gotta have your Stephon Diggs to your Josh Allen. You gotta have that elite help, and I don't know, man.
Yeah, and it's bet him. Yeah, you that offense is kind of a one read offense too, where it's like if his first option's not open, maybe a second option, he's trying to scramble and create something, and that doesn't work in the playoffs. So
he's another one too, man, where if you tune in on a certain day, he's going to look like the greatest player to ever step foot on the field. He's an incredible talent. So it's not a knock on him.
No.
Denver with Russell Wilson. Very, very interesting. 18-1. Man, they were good without him. Wilson's a clear upgrade. I mean,
huge upgrade.
I don't know what to make of this. I think that's another team, dude. The AFC is so stacked. Look at this, dude. I'm going to tell you that there's 6 or 7 teams in the AFC that's better than anybody in the NFC. I'm going to go that far. That's my opinion.
Yep.
Denver on the AFC West, though, dude. How are you going to get out of that division? Because we haven't even touched on the other half yet. They're above them. I mean,
it's going to be tough. But what I'll say about this is the demise of Russell Wilson has been greatly exaggerated. And I say that because Philadelphia was looking at it, or a lot of Philly fans wanted the Eagles to make a move to potentially trade for him last offseason. And a lot of reporters did deep dives into his season last year because there was a lot of talk, well, he's declining. Before that finger injury, his numbers were dynamite. I mean, they were out of this world. He comes back early from that injury, has kind of 2 bad games, but then rebounds and finishes the year statistically really, really strong. I mean, this feels like another Peyton Manning twilight of your career type of move for Denver.
Denver at the end and come in.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing about Russell Wilson kind of has surprised me with his career arc too, because young, he was kind of a gun, like a Favre making plays out of nothing, throwing the ball underhand and backwards and diving over piles and all that stuff. And I think over time, he's slowly developed into he's a pocket passer too. He's not just a good athlete. He's become a good quarterback, and I think, like you said, man, he's got that team, the Broncos, Ravens, Steelers, those type of teams are always built right, and that's 18-1, dude. Look out for Denver. With that said, though, they're coming in by far the best division in football.
Yep.
They might be lucky just to get out of their own division, which kind of sucks, but that's the way it falls sometimes. It used to be the NFC East.
Yeah.
It was the Giants, Redskins, and Eagles every year were great.
Yep.
Another one, Niners. Now, I think this is the best team in the NFC to me, and there's a couple that are going to be ranked above them.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's with Trey Lance, who's a complete question mark.
See, that's why I'm not sure about the odds. Like, I don't know. Like, if you tell me Trey Lance is going to be, I don't know, a lesser version of Josh Allen this year or something like that.
All right, let's play a game. Let's say that Trey Lance is Jalen Hurts.
Then I think the 49ers
kind of on
absolutely.
The same, I think they're on the same. I think they can be projected kind of similarly.
For sure,
because they got a better team around them than what they are.
Yes.
Yet they both could be awesome eventually, but they're young and inexperienced. But I think the Niners are another team like your Eagles, but maybe slightly a little better. I think because of Debo and I don't know. They're built in the trenches just as well too. They're great. But
they are. And
again,
my concern is because I think Kittle already has a little bit of a nagging groin injury, so that's a question mark, obviously, in the passing game. My biggest concern with them is, like, what if something happens to Debo Samuel? I mean, and now, granted, you could say that about just about any team on the list, but he is such a huge part of that offense. Yeah. He is going to make Trey Lance's life so easy. Yeah, yeah,
and that is him. That's kind of like Adams was to Rodgers. It's kind of like I guess you could, like you said, you could say that about a lot of teams, but even like if you took Stephon Diggs off of Buffalo, that'd be a huge hit.
Right.
Because that dude's electric. Debo might be the biggest example of a one-man offense right now out of the whole league.
Yep.
Like, I mean, as far as like pound for pound yardage on their offense as a receiver, because he's so versatile and big and strong. But with this, I won't bet them at 16-1. I don't want you to think that I'm saying that. I'm saying I think they're the best. They're the best team in the NFC. And again, I think there's like 6 teams in the AFC better than them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And like, by default, somebody's got to go. And I think the Niners are slightly better than the Eagles. And I think it's those two teams. Maybe you throw Green Bay, Tampa Bay in there, but I don't know. We'll get to them.
Yeah. And I think, with them re-signing Garoppolo as a backup now, I mean, whatever that does, I mean, apparently Garoppolo is beloved in that locker room. So the nice part is if Trey Lance is just a train wreck,
or he gets hurt or something,
or it gets hurt, you at least know what you have. You know what you have behind him. I mean, Garoppolo is at least a competent starter in the league, and he can game manage this team to the NFC Championship game at the very least. So
he's done it, man. Yeah. I think that was a no-brainer. I think that whole charade of last year, him saying goodbye, maybe not charade's not the right word, but dog and pony show. But man, that was like, if there was ever a spot for him, it's now. Because like you said, Lance could come out and shit the bed completely. We don't know. He might be the greatest quarterback in the history of the game. We have no idea. But there's no problem with having a great backup. And like you said, he's very competent with a good team. Very capable of winning with that team. Yep. The Chargers, this is the team that everybody's. I mean, if you're not on Buffalo, probably on the Chargers. I don't know. Herbert was borderline MVP last year, and everybody on earth's picking him to be the MVP this year. Although I think Josh Allen might have skewed the needle a little bit last night, but. Because Allen looked incredible last night. But Herbert and the boys, the Chargers are built to win. I just, again, man, I think there's 2 or 3 teams that are just a touch better than them, but certainly 14-1's not bad on them. I wouldn't be
14
surprised at all if they won.
Yeah, 14 was not bad. I'm probably a little colder on them than some people. I have a feeling that there's going to be a little bit of regression from Herbert this year. I think one of the things, he's a little different than people like Allen or Mahomes. He's not as he doesn't run as much. He's not as much of a creator out of the pocket as those guys are. And I think defensive coordinators, my dad would always joke, they get paid too. And like they get to start, scheming and game planning against you. And I think it's a little bit easier to scheme and game plan against a quarterback who you know where he's going to be a lot of the time.
Yep.
And so I just have a feeling there's going to be a little bit of regression. I'm not entirely sold on that coaching staff either. I know they did a good job last year, but I think there's a lot of smoke was blown up a lot of people's asses as well. And so I just not the biggest fan of that coaching staff. So I think there might be a little bit of a regression from the Chargers this year. So I'm probably, like I said, colder on them than most.
But you still see them as a
very legitimate. I mean, a very good team,
6 type team minimum for. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
Again, the only knock on them is, dude, you're in the same division with the rest of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a badass division. Let's move. The Rams, 12-1. I am not going to sit here and jump off the bridge to my death talking about how bad they were last night, because it was bad. Again, if you're watching this video, it's Friday after the first Thursday night football of the year. The Rams just got made to look ugly against Josh Allen and the Bills. Had a decent first half. Stafford and the boys are going to be okay, I think. I think they just got their wake-up call. Like, we're done popping champagne. They got hit in the mouth by the best team in the NFL. Athletic specimen I've seen in a long time. Josh Allen's looking stupid. And they just, I mean, they didn't look good last night. And Stafford didn't look good. The offensive line looked horrible. Maybe it kind of gives you one of those wake-up calls for just how valuable a good offensive line is, because Stafford looked ridiculous, throwing air balls and looked bad. He looked like a mediocre at best quarterback after looking great last year. So they can fix it, but they don't have the trench work they had last year. Obviously with some retirements and
I
mean, just they're not the same team. They lost. I'm a big Odell Beckham Jr. hater, but man, was he valuable down the stretch last year.
Yep.
Von Miller, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't like him at 12-1, but
yeah,
could they do it? Of course, out of the NFC, especially, they could still get back. It's them and the Niners to me. That's throw Philly in there for you.
Yeah.
No, I think Philly's the third best.
I think they are too. But I think there's a bit of a gap there between the top two and then where Philly probably comes in. And so the Rams, I just think it's important to not overreact to these first few games, honestly, for any of these teams. I would say that because
they won't. The Rams got a lot of veterans. They're not going to overreact.
Right. The way these coaching staffs prepare now, these players don't play at all hardly in the preseason.
Yep.
Like they treat the first couple of games, honestly, as more of a preseason now than anything else. They're going to work the kinks out. This is a good team. It's a well-coached team. Now, you could say, has Sean McVay, can he keep replacing his assistants with good assistants? Because his assistants seem to keep getting head coaching jobs other places. And that's a tough challenge for a head coach. And we've seen it with, I remember being in Philadelphia with Andy Reid when he started losing his top assistants, his top offensive coordinator, when he loses John Harbaugh to the Ravens, when he loses other coaches to other staffs, didn't replace them with the same level. So I think that's
Belichick
a long-term
too. Obviously,
concern.
Belichick has lost. I mean, half the league's Belichick disciples. Same thing. I mean, how many times can you replace them with somebody competent?
Yep.
I think the big wake-up call was the Rams. They need Odell Beckham or somebody on that caliber. You cannot go out. Robert Woods, I don't know where he's at, but you can't go out with. Yeah, their second and third receivers last night were non-existent. You got to have, and I know they got Robinson, but
who was just missing last night. But yeah,
and
it's
Cam Akers. What was that? The empty corpse of Cam Akers rolling around on the ground.
Yeah, it's Cooper Kupp and everybody else. Yeah,
yeah, and you can, like you said earlier, if you got one guy, dude, I mean, one trick pony, you're done.
Yep, that's the thing.
What about the Patrick Mahomes show at I still believe they can. A lot of people are writing them off like as if Mahomes sucks all of a sudden, which I couldn't disagree with more. I think that dude's great, 10-1. The only thing I hate about him is his stupid idiot brother that don't quit dancing on TikTok or whatever. And I unfortunately came across that for all the wrong reasons. I'm 40 plus years old. I don't play on TikTok, but you can't avoid this idiot. And if there's ever a reason to hate a team, it's that kid. And, I'd like to pour gasoline all over that kid and burn him. But anyway, that's not Patrick's fault.
No, it is not.
His wife's an obnoxious bitch too. But let's get into the Chiefs, who are, have they gotten any worse? They're still the same team, pretty much.
Yeah, I think so. This is actually maybe not to tip my hand too much. This is probably the most appealing odds. I think 10-1 on the Chiefs.
Done it before.
Are you kidding me?
2 years ago.
Yeah, I'll
and
take
3
that
years ago, they
day.
almost did it twice.
Yeah,
Mahomes
and I think
is still electric. I don't know what these people hating on him. It's all for the wrong reasons.
It is.
People have personal vendettas like me with the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, it is, and the Chiefs are absolutely, still a dynamite team, very well coached. Andy Reid's still there. Eric Bieniemy is still there as the offensive coordinator. That team's going to be ready to play. That team's got a ton of weapons. I mean, yes, they got rid of Tyreek Hill, but they one of the things that you can always trust in an Andy Reid style offense is it really doesn't matter who's there. They just can plug guys in because it's the system and the scheme.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yep.
And the Chiefs have always been that way, dude. Remember when it was every year there was a new plug and play running back like Denver Broncos too.
Yeah.
Like Priest Holmes. Was Priest Holmes really as good as Banders, or was he just putting up those numbers in that system because that's how good their offense?
Right.
Their strategy.
Like Trent Green went to a Pro Bowl there. I mean, come on. Like,
yeah, dude. Or like, I remember Terrell Davis for the Broncos is the best example I can think of. Terrell Davis, great talent, won Super Bowls with Elway. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, he's out. Oh, Landis Gary came in and rushed for 1,500 yards. Nobody's ever heard of him. Exactly. So the next year he signs with my Lions for $10 zillion because he got the big numbers the year before. They bring in 450-pound guys fatter than me, Mike Anderson, who's a fullback up until then. He comes in and rushes for 1,800 yards or something for Denver.
Yep.
So that's a system. And Andy Reid's a genius, man. Next, we're getting to the very elite now. We have the Green Bay Packers with the long-haired hippie Aaron Rodgers. I'm off it, dude. I think the Packers are done, and maybe that's just because I don't like them. But I sincerely feel like that ship has sailed. I don't know. I know that they're saying that this is the best team outside of Rodgers. Like this, they got trench work right finally in Green Bay, and if that's true, then they can win. Rodgers is still good. But man, I don't know. He just seems like his head's anywhere but football to me.
Yeah, I think that's a huge concern. I think that also as he's getting older, injuries are a concern. How much confidence do you have in Jordan Love behind him? The answer is 0. And, replacing Devontae Adams is not going to be easy, particularly with a guy like Rodgers, who is so prickly about trust. I mean, he really doesn't trust young receivers a lot of times. And now you're kind of asking him to do that. And the fractious relationship between him and that coaching staff, they can say anything they want. They flat out don't like each other. So, I just see a lot of opportunity for dysfunction in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's the type of team. If they come off anything but hot, like that thing could come off the rails quick.
Yep.
Because I think they're all kind of, like you said, the trust. You got Alan Lazard as your starter now. I mean, no thanks. Speaking of no thanks, 7-1, top echelon here. We got the vacationer, Tom Brady, the unquestionable greatest of all time quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Good team around him. But this is done, dude. I'm sorry.
It's cooked.
Yep. This is the year where it all comes apart and Brady wishes he would have went off in his drunken stupor with Tampa, the Super Bowl. Like, that was a great moment when he was hammered. I know this sounds stupid, but when he was hammered getting off the boat and throwing the trophy off the boats and all that.
Yeah.
Like that was like, dude, let the guy cut loose. He's been an uptight bastard playing under Belichick for 20 years. Let him have some fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the hell out of that. And I'm a Michigan State guy, so I hated him in college. Never was a fan, but I developed mad respect for him over his career. And it was just a perfect storybook ending. And then he came back for whatever reason.
And he almost pulled off a miracle last year against the Rams, if not for an equal miracle from Stafford and Cooper Kupp late in that game. I mean, he left the field with the lead. I mean,
they were great
down. And but the biggest problem with Tampa Bay is the offensive line. That they've suffered a lot of injuries on that offensive line. Tom Brady is a statue. That's not anything. That's not breaking news.
Fournette's 400 pounds.
Yeah, he needs that offensive line to keep him clean, and you can only do so much with a short passing game. And I just 7-1, no thank you. And that's why I think teams like the Rams, the 49ers, the Eagles are more appealing from a betting standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm out on the top team from a betting standpoint in the NFC. So if I'm out on them, then suddenly everybody else's odds look really good.
Yeah, and I really, of course, I think they could very well still make it out of the NFC. They're most likely still going to win 10 or 11.
Sure.
More
because
games.
That division is terrible.
Terrible. I mean, they got bye weeks like 6 times with Atlanta and Carolina.
And the Saints. Yeah, forget about it.
Yeah. I don't know. They're probably still going to make the playoffs, but unless Brady gets hurt or the wheels, if Brady gets hurt, and I'm not wishing that by any means.
Sure.
I mean, he's fun to watch. He's a great story, but it's over. He should have retired, dude. He did retire, and I don't know why he came back. Like I said, that was a storybook perfect ending, and he came back. Let's go. Buffalo at 5.5 to 1. I would never in a million years take a team at 5.5 to 1 this early in the season to win a Super Bowl. If Josh Allen goes down, it's over. Yep. If Diggs goes down, it's over. There's probably 3 or 4 trench players that you could say the same thing about, but they are unquestionably the class of the NFL right now, and they're in a league of their own.
They're stacked.
I mean, they're unbelievable. Both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Josh Allen looks freakish, dude. He was standing next to offensive linemen, defensive ends. He's the same size as those dudes.
Yeah.
And he runs like the wind. He's stiff-arming linebackers and safeties and blowing their heads off. He looks ridiculous. He's got a cannon arm. He's perfect. Here's my one concern with Josh Allen. What are they doing running bootlegs with 8 minutes in the fourth quarter on a 31-10 game last night?
Yeah.
They're asking for the nightmare of somebody coming in from the side and hitting him low and ending his season. Like you got to be better, Buffalo. You got to pull him out of the game there, dude.
That is always the delicate balance of teams with these types of quarterbacks, of these dual threats. Like, how much do you put these guys in harm's way versus how much of that specialness do you let out, because that's what makes them special. And you want them, the defenses to respect the run, but you have to be smart about play calling. To your point, like, you can't be putting them in those spots late in the game. It just
shouldn't even have been in the game then, but then they ran a freaking play action bootleg. I'm like, what are you doing? Like this, you're just. Yeah. And at that point, the other team's frustrated because they're down by 100. They might take his knees out on purpose because they're pissed. Like, you
just never know. And yeah, it was not a great play call. And they are stacked though. Otherwise, I mean, the one thing that I will say is, playing in Buffalo, you also have like the freakish weather issues. I think that like can pop up. Is like, what happens if they're hosting a what happens if they're hosting a playoff game?
Anybody in the NFL?
Because that lake effect snow.
Chicago gets it too, but
but like, what happens?
Most of the northern cities get their domes. Like Detroit, they're in a dome. They don't get the weather. So but Buffalo, dude, that's where you normally see the snow plows or snow blows with a foot of snow carving out the yard lines, dude. That's Buffalo.
Exactly. And like,
but my buddy pointed out, because I said that the other day about fantasy football, which has nothing to do with this. But,
oh yeah.
I'm like, but he's like, but Allen's even better in that shit because he's a better athlete. He goes running in that shit.
Yeah. But I guess my thought is that's just when you introduce like freakish weather, fluky things can happen. Like teams that aren't supposed to lose can lose. And so that's like, if you're talking about like the AFC Championship game in January, like who the hell knows what the conditions are going to be in potentially in Buffalo. And like, what happens if it's, in the middle of a blizzard and maybe, the Bills don't win. And like, I don't know.
Maybe that loser Leon Letgo
Yep.
slide into a
yeah.
kick and kicks the ball to the back of the end zone.
Exactly. I mean, I'm rooting for, the Bills. I like them as a team. I actually know the aunt of the general manager. I actually worked with her at a previous school that I was at. So I root for the Bills in that regard because I have kind of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of connection to them. But it's but at 5.5 to 1, you're right. This early in the season, no, thank you. But they are loaded.
It's just too much can happen.
Yeah.
And we talked about the gambles on some of these 16 to 1, 14 to 1, 20 to 1. At least then there's that. If you're going to put $100 down, let's say you can win a couple grand for that. That's worth it. To put $100 down and only win 500 with so much that can happen.
So much.
Wild. So let's do it. Let's just do a real quick, your pick. If you had $100, we're giving you $100 for free right now. You got to make one commitment. Is it your club, the Eagles?
No, as much as I would love to, I would put mine actually on the team we just spent a little bit of time talking about, the Chiefs. I would put it on the Chiefs, 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
I'll take 10 to 1 on the Chiefs.
Cool 1,000.
Nice. Yeah, take 1,000 back.
Yeah, and that's a team that's, like you said, they're pretty deep. And Mahomes is like, as much as he does depend on his legs, and he's a great athlete, he's also a great passer.
Yeah,
they're built. He's not really had any injury issues in the past. Hopefully he doesn't this year. I agree. I like that bet. My favorite bet, I'm going to go a little deeper than you did.
Nice.
I like the Bengals at 22.
That's a good bet.
They went there last year, and I know I just like Joe Cool, man. I think that team is there's no reason they can't do it again. And yes, with Buffalo, I just said Buffalo's head and shoulders above the rest right now. But this is a 17-week season plus playoffs, weather, all those things, So at 22 to 1, can the ball take a couple weird bounces and Cincinnati beat Buffalo? Yes. I'll take that at 22 to 1. So that's my pick. That's my favorite pick for the futures. I mean, that's what's cool about the futures. I mean, obviously, take your pick. Like your Eagles, I wouldn't kill you for taking the Eagles at 22 to 1.
No, yeah. I mean,
a couple an onside kick and a couple kick return. I don't know, interception, pick sixes, those type of deals. Change a game. That's what's cool about the NFL. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
No, I think for the most part, the futures, as usual, Vegas has it pretty right. I mean, they don't usually F up. They're building palaces out of gold out there for a reason.
Yep. I think but I think the X factor is that AFC West. I think that could really, between the Broncos and the Raiders and the Chiefs
Chargers.
and the Chargers, like I just have a feeling that could really throw off like the odds. Like if all of a sudden the Raiders look a lot better.
Let's be honest.
Like,
at the most, 3 of them will make the playoffs and 1's out, even though
right.
I'm going to say this. The Raiders, who are, I think, odds-wise, the last choice in the division, is better than anybody in the NFC outside of San Francisco, Philly, and Tampa.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about the 4th best team in the NFC, but they're 4th in their own division.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's kind of a shitty draw. But it used to be, growing up, it was always the NFC that was way stronger than the AFC. Was a joke. I mean, that's why the Bills went and lost 25 Super Bowls in a row, because the AFC was just weaker.
They were. And I mean, that was just all those years with the 49ers and then the Redskins and the Giants and the Cowboys. I mean, the 80s and 90s were just dominated by the NFC, and specifically the NFC East. I mean, and that was one of those where the Eagles used to be kind of in that spot where they would be like 10-6 and miss the playoffs. And it was just
because Washington had a run. Like you said, Dallas was the dynasty of the 90s.
Yeah.
Eagles were always good. Washington was always decent. I mean,
Parcells, Giants
Philly,
teams. I mean, yeah.
Philly's never been they've had, out of my lifetime, let's say 30 years of watching football, the Eagles have been good 2/3 of the time.
Yeah.
And then The other 5 years, mediocre, and only bad, like probably 5 years out of bad. I mean, like Lions bad.
Yeah. No, it's been not a bad time to be an Eagles fan. But like I said at the very beginning, it's about like those heartbreaking losses at the end of the season.
Yeah, what's worse, just sucking in general, like the Lions, but being able to watch like Barry Sanders and Kelvin Johnson, and on a lesser note, Stafford, but some great players have come through. And we never had our heart broken because it was always broken by like week 5.
Right, but
McNabb and Cunningham waited till the very end to break your heart, which is sometimes worse. So anyway, man, good to talk with you. Good luck, everybody, if you're going to bet these. It's going to be a fun season. I'm looking forward. This is the most excited I've been for NFL in years. So let's go. Good luck to your Eagles, except for this week 1 against the Lions. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for watching.